Good afternoon, everyone. It's Thursday, September 14, 2023, and I call the Committee on Public Infrastructure and Technology meeting to order. I would like to welcome Councilmember Wire and Councilmember Say. Councilmember Tolwa is excused today. Pursuant to Section 92-33.1 Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items in the agenda in two ways: remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen, activate your audio feed when prompted. I will give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom to be called upon. For those joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When the number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Some friendly reminders and tips: video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are also watching the proceedings on Honolulu, please mute your television at the time that you are called to testify. When the timer on the screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there is any, I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, phone number, will be available to the public as described in the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Thank you. Please note that agenda item number 3, resolution 22-165 on page 3, has been canceled and no testimony or discussion will be taken. All right, committee members, item number 1, resolution 22-199. This resolution accepts a gift for $50,065.56 to the city from the Hawaii Council of Engineering Societies for the 2022 Stormwater Quality Best Management Practices Workshops held on August 25 through 26, 2022. And here from the administration, we have Randall Wakamoto, Program Administrator, Stormwater Quality Division, DFM. And I don't see Randall. Would anyone like to speak in place of Randall? I actually know Randall well. He's a great guy. Randall cleans the storms very well. I'll say that much. I've stood with him by a storm drain. Anyone else from DFM online? Okay, well, we'll now proceed with remote testifiers. Are there any remote registered testifiers?
Yes, Chair.
Let's proceed with remote registered testifiers. Which one is it?
We don't know what item they're for.
Starsha or Maria, and we have a couple others, but we're not sure if it's for this item. Anyone remote wanting to testify for resolution 22-199, please go ahead and turn on your camera and unmute yourself, or you can use the raise hand feature. Yeah, I said all their names. Yeah. None. And if there are any unregistered remote testifiers that would like to test, oh, there's Randall. Randall, I was just talking some good things about you. All good things. Okay, go ahead, Randall. I just want you to share a little bit about the conference. Randall is from DFM, guys. He's a Stormwater Quality Division.
Yep. Thank you very much. I'm Randall Wakamoto with the City Department of Facility Maintenance, Program Administrator for our Stormwater Quality Division. So with this resolution it was a gift that we received from the Hawaii Council of Engineering Services. It's actually a reimbursement of the fees that we were charging for this stormwater workshop and conference that we hold each year. We invite all the engineers, contractors, developers, where we go over stormwater management measures, and it's a way to engage and also to educate.
Thank you. Council members, any questions for the administration? I want to ask a quick one since it already happened.
Yep.
At the conference that you're at, especially because we talk about stream maintenance a lot, stormwater, which kind of, some of it is similar. Do you think that at that conference there's anything that you guys learned that you want to see implemented and that you guys are going to be asking a budget item for?
For those, well, it's really looking at a lot of new technology that we're sharing.
Right.
We're also sharing our lessons learned from projects, and it could include stream-related projects as well. It's really to help the city, but also the folks that we're dealing with, which is the contractors, to make better projects and be able to learn from those experiences in the past.
That's great. So let us know. I know you guys are putting your budgets together for next year, but especially if you're talking about new technology, if you guys need line items that you think would make it more efficient for the city, stormwater and our streams are super important for us to keep clean. We're about to approach the rainy season. So any lessons learned, we'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, we've already had conversations about next year's workshops. And what we're looking at is being able to possibly partner with the American Public Works Association. So make it into like a public works / stormwater workshop / conference. So that really involves other other counties, and also a lot of the maintenance aspects so that we can focus on that side as well.
Yeah, and when you said that there is tips for maybe users of stormwater, which would be all of us, right? If there was anything that they handed out, could you send it over to my office? I'm always interested to share with the public more about how we can properly dispose of things. I've even had to tell my own children, hey, this stuff goes straight to the ocean. They're like, yeah. Oh, it does? Like, yes, don't throw things down there. So
yeah, exactly.
Anything that you guys have that you think it, would help us in the realm of educating the public, I think all of us could share it at our neighborhood boards and even just in our communications.
Yeah, definitely. I know that upcoming next weekend, we're going to be hosting a sort of like a engagement demonstration fair where we're encouraging residents and homeowners to come down, and we'll be showing some helpful tips in terms of maintaining their yards. So it's a lot of healthy yard care, doing things like using mulch, as well as being able to properly use fertilizers and other chemicals, and being able to try to maintain and keeping the grassing on their properties.
Do you have a flyer for that event?
Yes, we do, and we're actually putting out a press release that hopefully it should go out this week or early next week, and it happens at the Waipahu District Park on next week, Saturday.
Okay, great. We have Waipahu council member here, so he can share it with his neighborhood board. I was going to say it's probably in Waipahu. Thank you so much. Council members, any other questions for Randall? Thank you. Okay, we'll now proceed with, there is no more remote testimony, correct?
Correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, let's take any in-person testimony on Resolution 22-199.
Aloha, Council Member, Chair, and the City Council. Angela Melody Young testifying on behalf of CARES in strong support. So the gift is to support the Stormwater Quality Best Management Practices Workshop and Training held in August. And it's a gift from the Hawaii Council of Engineer Societies. So runoff, stormwater, it's generated from the rain and events that flow into the land, and rain that goes into the streets, parking lots, and building rooftops, and it doesn't get soaked up into the ground. So the rain then picks up pollutants like litter, chemicals, oils, dirt, sediment, and it causes harm to the rivers and the streams, lakes, and coastal waters. And so it's critically important to protect these resources and communities.
Thank you, Angela. If you can wrap up.
With the BMPs of Stormwater Quality Best Management Practices Training Workshops. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other testifiers in the room that wish to testify on Resolution 23-199? Seeing none, the chair then recommends that Resolution 23-199 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to item number 2, Resolution 22-197. This resolution urges the city administration to enter into negotiations with the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority to establish a commercial property assessed financing program in the city and county of Honolulu. At this time, I will defer to the introducer of the resolution, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. We'll defer to you on the CD, but just generally, it was encouraging the city to engage in the financing program, really to assist our community members that need that financing for resilience programs. I know we'll probably discuss probably the broader need beyond just commercial, but as you've talked about, it does support multifamily type units, and so ideally we can use this for some of the issues that you've been discussing in committee, like fire sprinklers and of course other modifications. So appreciate.
Perfect. And in your last committee, you guys did have a presentation, correct? Is that available online for people to access?
That is available online. I don't have the number on me, but the presentation should be in the communications filed.
Yeah, so we're not going to go through the communication again, but for those watching who may want access to it, there is a publicly filed document that has the full slides of what was shared in regards to this particular program. So right now, I am going to actually call up the administration. We have with us the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services, Andy Kawano, to speak on the department's position on this particular resolution.
Chairperson Tupola, council members, honorable council members, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. Yes, we do acknowledge the state's Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority's program to commence a CPACE program working with the city and county of Honolulu. We've had a number of discussions with the director of the authority that started in January of 2023. And we have an understanding of what the state would like to do. So essentially, high level, state is saying that they will enter into contracts with financing companies to provide loans to businesses to start with, commercial entities to start with, to purchase, install, operate, and maintain facilities to promote green energy, sustainability, and resiliency on this island. Initially, we thought that we would have to stand up, our own program, and fund the cost of, having appropriate staffing in place and systems and promulgate rules and procedures, processes to get everything stood up appropriately. After our review, we determined that, based on our situation currently, where we know that fiscal year 25 will be a very challenging year to get to a balancing budget, we determined that we would not be able to fund such a program. The state has an option for a state-run program whereby we enter into a memorandum of understanding or agreement with the state to implement such a program. We think that if we move forward, we would have to go that route, but there are a number of fiscal and legal issues that have to be addressed. For instance, with regard to both fiscal and legal concerns, the state's expecting that if the commercial business falls behind on its loan payments, which the state has deemed to be special assessments, non-ad valorem special assessments, that the city would be able to apply its paramount lien, on the assessment and collect these loan repayments on behalf of the state and the financial institutions at a priority level just below the paramount lien on real property taxes. We don't agree with that, and we're currently working through an arrangement that may be more applicable. The other issue that has come up is a situation whereby you have a lessee, where the lessee could be a state entity, Currently, the state entities don't pay any real property tax. So, applying that thought process to, the CPACE assessments, how can you apply a lien on, an entity such as a state that does not pay property taxes, at this point in time. So there are, a lot of, we believe, concerns and issues that have to be addressed along those lines. And I think the main thing is the current program's incorporation of loan repayments as special assessments and special assessments that can be collected through the real property tax system. We don't believe that these special assessments should be combined or incorporated with anything related to real property taxes. And given the fact that the CPACE program is really a program based on a loan or perhaps even a mortgage on property used by or installed, used, operated by commercial businesses, we don't believe that a paramount lien on those assessments applies. And I'm reiterating that fact again. So we have, again, some fiscal and legal issues to resolve, and until we resolve them, we don't want to move forward, with the program as is.
Okay.
And I'll take questions.
Yeah, I definitely think we have questions, but let me just itemize what you said. It was a lot. So first off, you said that the county does not have the wherewith funding-wise to stand up their own program due to staff costs and administrative rules and what you're forecasting for 2025.
Yep, and systems as well.
Okay.
We're going to have to invest in systems.
But that the county is in favor of a possible MOU and having the state run their program.
If I said that if we move forward with such a program, it would make more sense for the county to
do a MOU instead of standing up their own department.
Yeah, and piggyback on the state's program.
Okay, so then you said the three issues that you have with the program are, one, the type possible defaults from special assessments, two, that those who don't pay property taxes would have no possibility of having this type of loan because certain state entities who don't, there would be no lien, it would be on nothing, right? And three, that you were concerned that special assessments weren't the way to go because of, I forget what the third point was.
So essentially the third point was that, the CPACE program is essentially a program of loans, made up of loans between third-party financial institutions and the state. And our point is that, the loan repayments are not truly special assessments, even though the state has defined such loan repayments as special assessments in statute. We don't agree with that. Getting back to that second point, in addition to the fact that you have, there could be situations where a state is leasing space to a commercial enterprise. You also have the situation where you have leases between landlords and commercial enterprises in general, and you can't really apply a paramount lien on the property that includes, let's say, solar panels installed without the landlord's approval, if the business is a tenant of the
Understood.
landlord.
And I think that's
So
to the
there's-
state to administrate that.
Yes.
Understood. Okay,
Yes.
we'll open up for questions. Council members, any questions for the administration? Go ahead, Council Member Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And Mahalo, Director.
Yes.
I just wonder if you could walk through that again in terms of your interpretation of the program versus what is expected. So are you saying that it would be allowed for, just for example, the financial institution to be the one that's required to pursue repayment, and that it shouldn't be the obligation of the county to impose a lien? Am I hearing that correctly?
I think the loan will be between the financial institution and the commercial business. What the state is expecting, if we go by route of memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding, is that if the loan repayments become delinquent, we would be able to apply our paramount lien on the property to make collection on the loan. And that results in, a multitude of issues that could come up through that process, because this loan repayment, deemed to be a special assessment by statute, is not a tax, and essentially is not a special assessment based on the way we do it.
Do you know the underlying reason that they have that position, or what the policy discussion was?
I do not know, because we were not involved in the legislation for the statute, in terms
Yeah,
of the research and, the due diligence and all of that. Not sure why it's done that way, but we also know that nationally throughout the U.S., there are programs that have been implemented. We're not sure if the laws and regulations that have to be followed are the same as ours.
Okay, last question, Chair Mahalo. So what would be the cost, given that the loan itself is a third-party loan or private loan? Most likely our local financial institutions that choose to participate in the program would be the ones giving those out. What would be the cost to the city then if it did stand up the program in terms of manpower or number of staff and or we don't know?
We'd have to figure it out. First of all, if we decide to stand up our own program, we probably need staff that currently don't have the skills that we have in our Treasury Department. We probably need some skill sets in underwriting. For instance, as an example, we'll probably need some skill sets in enforcement, collections of loans. We collect receivables through Treasury, but we don't really issue loans and collect loan repayments. We also, I don't believe we would be able to do the record keeping for loan underwriting, loan issuance, loan collections through our current real property tax platform. So we'd have to probably invest in a new system that will probably be very expensive.
Okay, thank you, Director. My hope is that maybe some of the testimony today can provide insight too, in terms of ways to possibly navigate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Any other council members with questions? Director, I do know that there are people here that can answer some of those questions, and I do think that the step forward for a MOU would be much more advantageous than trying to stand up our own program per se. I will say, though, that they have across the nation about 2,500 CPACE properties, and none of them have gone into foreclosures nationwide. So I do think that the program does have a conservative component to it where they're not taking risks that would adversely affect residents or those who use the CPACE loan. I do think that when I met with them, and I'll have them clarify, that one of the questions I asked was whether or not you guys would be administering that. And they said that the amount would appear on the real property tax assessment, but that it wouldn't be generated by the BFS department, meaning that it comes on the same statement, but that there is no assumption that BFS now has to calculate that amount. And I think also one of the things that I liked about it was that it was, if it was for a particular property and that property was sold, that it continues for that property, that even if that owner leaves. And I do think that from case to case, like what you're saying, state properties that don't pay property taxes, they wouldn't qualify because it needs to have that type of leverage in order to do this type of loan. But I think they would be the ones to determine those type of cases on whether or not they would even qualify for like a CPACE loan. But I did ask almost all the questions you asked, so I'm gonna let them talk in their testimony and clarify some of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, council members, I did also post a CD1. I'm just gonna read it out loud so that those who are testifying can also be aware of the additions that I added, and then we can add that into your testimony. Other people who want to comment on it can. I introduced a proposed CD1 that adds a fifth whereas clause to provide that property owners need methods to finance improvements to address unfunded mandates placed on them, such as cesspool conversion requirements imposed by Act 125, Session Laws of Hawaii 2017. I added a 10th whereas clause stating that commercial property assessed financing program would be applicable to a wide range of properties, including any property that is multifamily residential property of 5 or more units and any commercial, agricultural, or industrial properties. This part was very important to me because that has to do with sprinklers. And so this means that high-rise buildings would be able to qualify for this, which we need this type of infrastructure funding in order for people to comply with the fire code law that was passed back in 2018 and then the mandate that came in 2022. So at this time, we're going to open up for testimony. We'll start off with any remote registered testifiers. Clerk, are there any?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll proceed with our first testifier. What is all this? Starsha? Oh, here. We'll go with this one. We'll go with Gwen Yamamoto Lau and followed by Michael Yaki. Miss Lauer, if you are there, go ahead and unmute. Oh, she's in.
Do you want to go with Michael first? Since
Okay, yeah. Is Michael online? Hi, Michael. Go ahead. Please proceed.
Mahalo. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My name is Michael Yaki. I'm the Senior Vice President for Petros Pace Finance, the country's largest originator of C-PACE financing. And I'm going to stand by my statement, and instead I'm here to address any questions that you may have, as well as during my time and outside of my time as well. But let me just say this. C-PACE has been active in 33 states and hundreds of communities across this country. It is the Hawaii statute, which I actually helped write with Gwen, is no different, nothing dissimilar to any of the active programs that we have across the country that are working just fine right now. The purpose of how this works, that the special assessment, which is used to fund public policy agendas, such as what you were talking about, whether it's sprinklers, whether it's earthquake, whether it's hurricane, those energy efficiency, GHG reduction, all those things are legitimate powers of the local government. What we do is we add our private financing to do it, secured by that special assessment, which enables us to use lower interest rates and longer terms to help property owners afford these improvements.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate your testimony and support. Next testifier, Cliff Kellogg, followed by Amanda Samai. Hi, aloha, Mr. Kellogg. Please proceed.
Hello, thank you very much, Chair Tupela, Vice Chair Say, and members of the committee. Thank you for convening this hearing. I have submitted written testimony, but I would like to use my time here to directly address some of the important issues raised by Treasurer Kawano. It's important to acknowledge that any of these financing opportunities must be approved by any other mortgage holder on the property, so that another bank that has the senior lien on the property will be reviewing and must consent to the proposed financing. We think that is the kind of expertise that assures that an independent expert has reviewed the financing and approved it. Also, that the reason that there have been no foreclosures nationwide that have gone all the way through foreclosure is that the existing mortgage holder would like to avoid foreclosure, and so they will advance the amount of any delinquent unpaid assessments, any unpaid taxes, to avoid the process of foreclosure. So we have not had any situation where a tax authority has had to resolve a situation by a complete foreclosure. Instead, there is a negotiated workout. So we are available. The C-PACE Alliance is a coalition of the largest C-PACE financiers nationwide, and we're glad to address any individual questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Council members, any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, let's move to Amanda Samai, followed by Todd Sharkey.
Madam Chair, next testifier is not logged on.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Todd Sharkey, followed by Thomas Nida.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity here. I'm just going to restate what some of my existing testimony identified, which is the benefits to Honolulu really come back to property resiliency improvements. This does include multifamily properties. We have done a number of multifamily projects with the CPACE program. This would allow them to also become more resilient to natural disasters and other threats. Also, from an improved energy efficiency, increased property values for the city and for the county. Outside financing sources providing those needs rather than municipal funding, and the opportunity for financial savings for the commercial property owners compared to the financial burden of the actual loan itself. So the resiliency pieces, the energy improvements make it very worthwhile for them. We consider CPACE financing a strategic objective to really improve the efficiency and resiliency of our commercial properties in the communities that we serve. And as such, I go and I support such a measure for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a quick question, Mr. Sharkey. When you said I've done a handful or a dozen of these properties with CPACE, are you talking about in another state or here in Hawaii?
Yes, in Minnesota, where we are based. I'm from Sunrise Banks, based in St. Paul, Minnesota. Ours have actually been primarily focused on multifamily properties, including properties that are in construction at this moment.
And when you say in Minnesota, is that administered by the state of Minnesota, or are you in a municipality?
It is actually administered through our Port Authority in St. Paul. The Port Authority has been delegated that authority via the state and serves as our primary administrator of the CPACE program.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's move on to Mr. Thomas Nida, followed by Jessa Coleman.
Thank you, Chair Tupelo. My name is Tom Nida. I'm a retired banker that has been active with PACE Lending in Washington, D.C. for the last 7 years, helped them craft their program and refine it over that period of time. And during that time, I have financed not only multifamily properties, but also healthcare facilities, education facilities, retail properties, warehouses, and production facilities. So I'm very experienced with the process. As Mr. Sharkey mentioned, and Cliff Kellogg, that normally the lenders will have the recourse to resolve any issues with protective advances under their mortgages, as opposed to having things go to tax sale. And our experience in DC, as mentioned before, has been such that I have not had any delinquencies, defaults, or losses in the 7 years I've been doing this. I think the statute at the state level with Hawaii probably is very similar to what we've had in DC, and is what we're seeing around the country. So I just want to add my support to this. I have family on the Big Island and anxious to see this program put in place all across Hawaii.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nida. We have a question from a council member. Please proceed, Council Member Toba.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Nida, why do you think you're not getting any delinquencies on these loans?
The issue is that part of it is we underwrite the property request for the PACE loan as the same as we do mortgages. I do quite often the mortgage and the PACE loan on the same property. The underwriting is the key. The issue is also we require that the property owner escrow for those, in our case, semi-annual property taxes or PACE taxes, so that we know going in that if there's money in escrow, that the payment's going to be made on time. And if not, we have provision in our mortgages for what we call protective advances. So if a property owner fails to pay an insurance premium or tax payment on time, we simply pay it for them, add it to the balance of the mortgage, and then come back and renegotiate the terms of the repayment of the mortgage. It doesn't go to tax sale.
Got it. And it could be, too, they're having a little bit more extra money in their pocket, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was a good question. I have a follow-up, Mr. Nida.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever administrate, one of the concerns that was brought up by the administration was properties that don't have or pay property taxes. Are those properties automatically disqualified when they don't pay property taxes?
No, ma'am. The only time that you're not going to have an issue with that is in Washington, D.C. We have many properties that are owned by both federal and local government and nonprofit organizations, and there's a process for which they are to become tax exempt. But the fact that it's exempt from real estate properties in D.C. does not preclude them from asking for a voluntary special assessment on PACE. What you can't do is you cannot have a lessee require. It has to be the property owner that has to require that because they're the ones responsible for paying the property taxes.
That makes sense. So that's the way around it. You do not get it if you are not the owner of the property. If you are less.
Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you so much for that clarification. Appreciate you attending.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We'll follow with Jessa Coleman, followed by Mark Glick.
Hi, good afternoon. Sorry, I was waiting for the timer. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jessa Coleman. I'm Director of Programs and Policy at Naveen Green Capital. We are a subsidiary of Naveen, the asset manager for TIAA, the pension fund. We have lent in virtually every single CPACE program in the country. I think you've received a lot of great information from some of my fellow CPACE lenders on the line. One comment I'd just like to confirm is that in the case of delinquency, default, or foreclosure, there is absolutely no instance in which any sort of state or public agency or local government is going to be obligated to take on the delinquent amount. That outstanding balance will actually remain with the property until it passes again into private ownership, at which point that new private owner would be obligated to repay any back assessments in this case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to clarify, you said when somebody uses a CPACE loan, the government is not liable, and if they don't pay, the government is not responsible for taking over that loan payment.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you so much for testifying. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Let's go on to Mr. Mark Glick, followed by Michael Pacheco.
Madam Chair.
Aloha. Aloha, Maria Tomei on behalf of Mark Glick. He regrets that he's unable to be here and thanks you for hearing this message. And I will be here in case you have information that you would like from the Energy Office. We defer to Gwen on this matter. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate the Hawaii State Energy Office being on, and we see Gwen in the chambers here, so I'm sure she'll follow up nicely with any information you have. I think our last registered testifier remotely would be Mr. Michael Pacheco.
Aloha, Honorable Chair Tupuola, Vice Chair Say, Councilmember Wire, and Councilmember Toba. I hope you guys are all doing well. My name is Michael Pacheco, and on behalf of Damian Kim and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 1186, we thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of Resolution 23197. And we just stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, are there any other registered testifiers standing by remotely?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, are there any unregistered testifiers standing by remotely? I do see Starsha with her hand up. Starsha, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, great. First of all, my apologies. Amanda Samai was unable to make it tonight. She had a family emergency. I'm testifying in her place. I appreciate the opportunity today. I just want to approach this from a little bit different tack. The inflationary pressures that property owners have endured and the subsequent higher interest rates that have followed have caused a lot of pressure on properties and even stopped a lot of projects in their tracks. They've been forced to value engineer projects to a much lower standard. The power of CPACE allows property owners to, use billions of dollars of potential private capital to take the burden off of the properties and actually reduce potential defaults and achieve all of the policy goals, including some of the life safety issues that I know are very near and dear to Hawaiians' hearts these days. I'm happy to answer any question in that regard.
Thank you so much. Could you please state your full name for the record?
I apologize. Sal Tarsi, I'm managing partner of Castle Green Finance, a nationwide capital provider for CPACE.
Thank you. And what states have you guys been working in?
We work in all states that have passed programs, which currently is 33 active states.
Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, are there any other unregistered testifiers, remote testifiers standing by?
Madam Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll now be taking testimony in the chambers. I do believe we'll start with Gwen Yamamoto Lau. Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Chair Tupola, Vice Chair Say, and members of the Committee on Public Infrastructure and Technology. My name is Gwen Yamamoto Lau, and I'm the Executive Director of the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority, an agency attached to DBED. I stand on my written testimony, and some of my verbal testimony was going to repeat what the gentleman from Castle Green Finance said. So what I'll do instead is address some of the issues and questions that Director Kawana had. So on the issue of the special assessment, as we discussed, Director Kawana and I think what CPACE will follow is the special assessment that the Waikiki district has. Waikiki has a special assessment. We will follow the written procedures that the city has on collections all the way up to foreclosure. You know, we just don't have the power to foreclose. My guess is that the foreclosure procedures that the city has for the Waikiki special assessment will probably mirror what CPACE is. And we'll, as Director Kawana and I discuss it further, we'll probably uncover what that might be, so we can have more visibility towards that. The other thing is, just real quick, on the collection of the real property, the CPACE loans, HGIA will be issuing standalone bills, so it does not have to be collected or billed by the property tax office. We don't want to use their resources, their scarce resources, so it will mirror a real property tax. It will be due in February and August, like a real property tax will be, but we will be servicing it outside of the real property tax bill. Available for any other questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Council members, any questions? I have a question. So I have the presentation in front of me that you did in the Housing Committee, and on the bottom it says, county must authorize CPACE program through ordinance. Is this necessary or not? Because he's suggesting MOU. I hear that, you know, it's kind of already part of a Waikiki special assessment that exists. So what is the answer to, does the county have to authorize this in order to move forward?
So in all the other states, the counties do authorize it through ordinance. Our other counties that we're talking to here in Hawaii, they are going to be putting it through ordinance. I understand there's precedence for the mayor to enter into an MOU without the county council passing an ordinance. However, the council might want to codify it because that ensures that it is longer lasting than the current administration.
So you're saying that the precedence is the Waikiki special assessment?
My understanding is that the city has implemented programs without the county council's approval through MOU.
And the MOU would just be for whatever duration it's signed for, and you're saying that it should be codified. Do you have an idea of where you would codify that in our ROH?
I don't have it right now, but I can let you know.
It's just a thought, you know, because this is just a resolution, so we're not doing an ordinance right now.
We actually have a draft ordinance that is available, has been available.
Okay. And, you know, especially in your presentation, when I looked over it, because you wrote the word fire, sprinklers, cesspool conversions, and when we spoke, you said that this particular fund, although passed on the state level for commercial, can still include agricultural properties. Is that true?
Agricultural as well as residential with at least 5 or more units are defined as commercial for the CPACE program.
Right. And because this is a resiliency grant, this is for those areas, because I do have quite a few in the agricultural area that are debating whether or not they're going to do a cesspool septic conversion, right? They're not in a sewer district. There's no way the city's building sewer lines out there. So this could possibly apply to them. Is that correct?
Exactly. I even on the resiliency side have a senior housing project that is looking at hurricane windows. They need to put that in and they're looking at this towards their financing mechanism.
And when we talk about the sprinkler systems, which for some buildings is very expensive, a retrofit would be, can you just maybe in general terms say how much of a savings a CPACE loan would be versus a regular bank loan? And I get it, there's different loan rates. We're just going to take a stab in the dark, but how much would we be saving by doing a CPACE loan?
So what the CPACE loan does is it lowers the rate, but it also stretches out the term. And it's the term of the retrofit that's being installed. So water sprinklers, I understand, is a 30-year life. So compare a typical equipment loan, which is 5, 7, 8, maybe 10 years, paying off that with a 25 or 30-year loan that brings down your repayment and makes it a lot more affordable for the commercial property owner.
So say, for example, I think in the Marco Polo, they spent, I don't know, upwards of 16 million, maybe more on doing their retrofit. What would that look like in savings? So I take out a bank loan, it costs this much. I take out a CPACE loan, I save what, 60%, 40%? Like what is the general savings?
I can't tell, like I'm not that smart, but I do have an example in my testimony.
Okay, because I can ask some of the guys that are online too, like what they would say, because some of them represent investors in financing. Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Yamamoto Lau. All right, let's proceed to our next in-person testifier in the chambers. Go ahead, Angela Melody Young.
Aloha. City Council, Angela Melody Young testifying in strong support. So on behalf of CARES, because we care about nature and green infrastructure and the sun, so framework from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Green infrastructure can help replenish and heal nature, like groundwater resources, relieving stress on local water supplies and reducing the need to import water. Green infrastructure reduces urban heat by planting trees and building green roofs. And it lowers building energy demands by reducing indoor temperatures and shading building surfaces. It also reduces rain flowing into sewer systems. And so kind of creating green infrastructure limits and standards and putting it into policy without it being too burdensome for the commercial buildings is good, especially if commercial buildings are going to have to be retrofitted. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any other testifiers in the chambers wanting to testify? No need? No? Okay. Seeing no other testifiers in the chamber, council members, we're going to move into discussion. But wait, before we move into discussion, I'm going to ask one person online. Mr. Todd Sharkey, are you still online? Because I want to ask you the question about financing. I think he's still there.
Yes, I am still here.
And I know that this, you work in Minnesota. I get it. We are in a different state. You're a different bank. We may not finance with you. But in general, we had a building, right? And they did a loan, I'm sure, to do their retrofit, to do sprinklers because they had a fire in their building. They spent $5.2 million doing the retrofit and installing it. So if you were to compare a bank loan versus a CPACE loan, what does the savings look like?
Well, compared to, for example, I listened to Gwen's testimony here and hearing the comparison of, say, a 5, 7, or 10-year loan compared to a 30-year loan, you're talking about a savings of roughly 40 to 45% as far as the payments are concerned. Over that, if you were even to compare just a 10-year to a 30-year, if you're going to go a 5-year, you're probably going to talk about more like a 60 to 70% savings as far as the payment amount.
Are you saying that because most banks wouldn't do the 30-year?
Correct. I mean, you probably wouldn't be doing a 30-year unless you were to go and wrap that into that original mortgage. And then even in that case, the question comes back to, without having that super priority in place, now you have to have a loan to value that is supportive of doing that retrofit improvement, whereas CPACE, because of that super priority, gives a lender much more comfort being able to go ahead and extend additional financing on the property itself.
No, that's great. That's kind of what I thought, that it would be somewhere around the 50%, a little under 50% savings if you're doing the loan. And I think that that's a huge amount of savings for people who have to comply with current laws that require, you know, a cesspool conversion or require installation or a retrofit in a multi-unit building with sprinklers. So, I mean, we're talking millions of dollars that people would have to expend. And I think this is comforting to know that the loan would be out there that would be 45 to 50% less than what they would get if they were to do a regular loan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Okay, council members, let's move into discussion and then we can adopt the CD1 and move on. I just wanted to reiterate some of the points that were said today, that if the CPACE loan was done in our county, that it would be a standalone bill and not having to be administered by BFS, that they would do it in February and October. It is going to be underwritten by a bank and by a lender and not by our division or anyone within the government, because the loan is between the individual and the bank. They also said that people who are not property owners do not qualify. So places that don't pay property taxes can still try for the loan. They can't use the property tax as any type of capital, but they have to be the property owner. They did say that the reason why they've had no foreclosures is because they underwrite, they require escrow semi-annually, and that they have protective advances to renegotiate the terms of the loan if people don't pay it, and that the state and local government is not responsible for any delinquent payments or the program. So with that being said, I just wanted to summarize that. Council members, any questions, discussions, or thoughts? Go ahead, Council Member Say.
So would this special assessment disqualify me for my original homeowner's mortgage?
No, I don't want to answer for them, but I sat in a meeting for hours. We did 3 hours, me and Gwen, and the answer is no.
No, when I apply, let's say Bank of Hawaii for my $800,000 loan, on top of what I'm paying on my real property tax, this will be another special assessment.
Yes.
Okay, that special assessment will impact my qualification for that $800,000 loan.
The one you already took out or a refi?
The one I already took out. I'm just trying to think about what we're trying to do in promoting affordable housing. Because a lot of times now the interest rates have made a lot of the applicants not qualify because of the ceiling that we set.
Understood. I think I have a bunch of people with their hands up because they do financing. Is it okay if I just have them answer?
Yep, go right ahead.
Let's start off with Cliff Kellogg. Go ahead.
The statute passed by the Hawaii legislature does not allow financing for homeowners or for a property of 1 to 4 units. So your home mortgage would not be affected in any way because this financing is not available on single-family homes.
No, because for single-family homes, you can't use the CPACE. So specifically in my CD1, I wrote that only units with more than 5 dwellings can qualify, as well as agricultural and commercial high-rises.
May I just follow up, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Then the question that you posed to us that was posed to this body was in regards to our cesspools. Individual owners of Eva Beach that we talked about, where they're going to be assessed with an improvement district assessment for the replacement of the cesspools. I'm just trying to figure out with this special assessment, okay, I don't qualify, that's fine. It's for other 5 or more units, commercial activities. Now we're getting
So I brought it up because of agricultural properties. Gwen, if you could come up, please. So I brought up that because on agricultural properties that they might be able to use this for the cesspool conversion, but it's not for single family homes. And I don't think it would apply to the Eva Sewer District at all. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, you're absolutely right. And there are still about 200 large capacity cesspools here in Hawaii that this could help on the commercial properties.
Yeah, so on commercial properties or in agricultural areas, but not single family homes in the urban area.
And one final thought, Gwen. I hate to say this. If I'm a lessee of a private landowner that has a strip mall and we have to do, let's say, a retrofitting for the fire,
Right.
who benefits from it? The landlord or me as a lessee? Just being realistic. I'm trying to.
Only the landowner can take out a CPACE loan,
Okay.
not a
Is that-
lessee.
see? So does he pass on the savings to me as a lessee? Like we talked about renters.
Yeah.
They should. Can you mandate that? It should? Councilmember Tova. Okay.
Well, I think
I bring
If
this up,
you're honest, of course. Yeah.
if you're honest, then yes.
but I bring this up because, the reality of the financing side.
Yeah.
Who are the beneficiaries?
I'll just take one more comment, then I'll go to Councilmember Wire. Sorry. Let's go with Mr. Naida. I know you probably want to say something short about the financing.
Yes, just in terms of the issue of affordability, most of the PACE loans that I've dealt with were to improve energy efficiency of a property, typically a retrofit with an older existing property. And one of the standards we have for underwriting is what's called a savings to investment ratio, SIR, which means that the amount of the PACE payment should be more than covered by the amount of utility savings that are being projected, typically power, but it can also be water and gas. To the extent of the issue about the strip center that was burned, typically speaking, the property owner is the one that's going to be restoring the property. The lessee gets to restore what's inside their space. And so the insurance will be matched up by whatever is done to help retrofit the property and maybe improve it when it's being restored.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Wire.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Since we had Gwen up here, I just wanted to double check, going off of Councilmember Say's question about single-family residential. What would we need to do, or what would need to happen to make it accessible to those single-family residential properties, particularly, say, if it relates to cesspool conversion?
Yes, thank you for the question. So actually, when we submitted the bill to the legislature last year, it included the residential cesspools because we have 83,000 of them that we need to deal with. However, because of the lien, CPACE or the PACE lien being above the first mortgage, in the commercial property assessed clean energy financing program, we always had lender consent required, meaning the bank or mortgage holder needs to consent to the PACE loan. We could not do that in the residential because there's so many of them, but more importantly, residential loans are a commodity and sold and resold in the secondary market. So it's really hard for the residential homeowner to know who even owns their mortgage, and therefore it's hard for them to get a consent. And that's why the residential program did not allow it. Because of that, the banks and the credit unions opposed the bill, and in order to move it forward, we took out the residential program so that at least we can help the commercial property owners.
If I could just ask a quick follow-up. I know you mentioned the opposition. Do you feel like there's room to still have a discussion about potential ways for local financial institutions to get involved in this, or are we going to continue to see that opposition, or where can the conversation go just to make these funds more accessible?
Right. So on the commercial PACE program, I would love for our local banks to also be CPACE lenders here. On the residential program, yeah, we would have to sit down and discuss it and figure out where might be a compromise there.
Okay, mahalo.
Thank you so much. I'll just take a really quick comment from Mr. I think Michael Yockey has his hand up.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify something. The statute does allow PACE to go on leases. Most leaseholds require that the lessee pay all taxes, assessments, and whatever as part of their thing. So it is a question of underwriting and credit, but it can and has been done in states across this country. We do not go, it is not put on the fee, the landowner, it is put on the lessee, because usually, especially in Hawaii, given the reason we did this for Hawaii especially was because we know that there are large numbers of property that still are under leaseholds, and we wanted to make sure they would be able to benefit from CPACE as well. So it's actually explicitly allowed under the statute, and it can and has been done in a lot of communities across the country.
When you say it can and has been done, are you talking about with lessees? Is that what you just said?
Yes, because if for example, the lease is, say, 40, 50 years, a 20-year CPACE assessment is well within that. And many lessees get financing just as property people who own property do. If you're a big developer and you have a lease for a big shopping mall, what have you, on land, they get financing from banks. They can qualify for finance from CPACE as well. What we have to do is it gets a little complicated, but we have to underwrite it and look at, for example, their credit, how much is left in there, what are their rights for termination, because we want to make sure that we have as secure a lien as possible on the leasehold itself. So it can and has been done.
So what you're saying, and Mr. Naida, who shared, actually is working out of DC, so there could be a difference in the laws there. But what you're saying is that you do not need to be a property owner in order to qualify for this, because the qualification of paying property taxes isn't one of the qualifiers?
Exactly, because many of these lessees are required by their agreement to pay taxes, so it's already passed through to them. But the benefit of having HGIA administer the program is that they can then bill the leaseholder directly rather than have to complicate things with Honolulu's property tax. So that if you have a condo in Waikiki that's on leasehold land, you're able to still use CPACE. Otherwise, you would be disqualified. And we made sure that in the statute that leaseholds could be eligible. It doesn't mean they always will be, but it does mean that they can be eligible because the assessment can be attached by HGIA directly to the leasehold itself, just like mortgages can attach to leaseholds as well.
Understood. And I think just for clarification, since I was talking about two types of things that people could use for infrastructure on the presentation, it did also say that this loan can be used for HVAC, lighting, water fixtures, irrigation, elevators, ventilation, windows, roofing insulation, boilers, chillers. So for the public watching, it's not necessarily for one or two things exclusively, but for a variety of things that help with resilience and energy efficiency within your home if you do qualify. Okay, Councilmember Tolba, any questions? All right. Okay, council members, we've had a lengthy discussion about this, and I personally spent a lot of time trying to learn more about this so that I would understand if it applies to some of our really big needs in the city. And so I came up with the CD1 just to add that in so that there is clarification on how it could help us to accomplish the goals that we have. So at this time, I would like to recommend that Resolution 23-197 be amended to the posted CD1. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. The chair then recommends that Resolution 23-197 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Is there any objections? Oh, should we take testimony? Is that what you're going to say?
The motion is just to amend it, not to report it out.
Oh, sorry. The chair recommends that Resolution 23-197 be amended to the posted CD1. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, the resolution is amended to the CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 23-197 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Is there any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. So, council members, we'll be moving forward with more conversations. This is just a resolution. We would like to see very little, if zero, weight put on the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services through this whole process. We want to see what the steps look like moving forward with what we have in place and what the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority can do to administer this so that the city is not the main stakeholder holding all the burden of this. I do think that it's something that's heavily needed for what we need to accomplish here in the city for health and safety. All right, since item number 3 has been canceled, mahalo everyone for your attendance and participation today. There being no further business, this meeting is now adjourned.